what a day yesterday. So about this time yesterday we managed to get the truck on the drive by dismantling part of the house, not by too much, but it's on. So I mean, we're in a better way than we were yesterday. Now we can focus on, you know, sorting all the paperwork out and making sure the truck is legit before we can get it back on the road, which I don't know how we're going to get it back on the road, because getting it on the driveway was probably the most difficult thing, because there's no power steering. So obviously the engine fired, but there's just no power steering, so we just had to sit on the clutch, which isn't brilliant anyway, and turn the wheels. Obviously you can see on the floor, I've cleaned it up, but there's obviously turn marks all over the floor. I almost drove it straight through the front of next door's fence, which is actually our fence. But yeah, it was a tough day yesterday. Successful? Yeah, I'd probably say it's a successful day yesterday. I gave it a bit of a clean. I'm not going to give it a full clean because there's kind of no point. But I gave it a little clean. I sort of hoovered out the inside. I made sure that the inside was, you know, as good as it can be. Obviously, I've got some seals to do. I've got the outer rockers, but I don't have the inner rockers. So until I cut the outer ones off, I don't know what the inner ones are going to look like. I also have floor pans, but actually it's kind of solid up until about sort of here. So I don't know whether I can just get away with a little patch with metal there, or I just do the whole floor. I don't know what's going to be easier. I'd rather not do the whole floor, to be honest, but you know, I know the rocker's going to be good to cover here, but how far does the rocker come? That's what I'm going to have to look at today. Other than that, you know, it's as clean as it can be for a 51-year-old farm truck, you know. Got, I don't know if you can see it there, we've got hard rear springs. So instead of leaf, we've got hard rear springs, and I've got something to do with an oil gauge. So this was the upgrades here. This is what you buy the truck and you sort of upgrade the truck from the showroom, and it's also got an oil gauge upgrade. I don't know whether that means that. I don't know what you call an upgrade in the 1970s, but to me that doesn't look like an upgrade. It just looks like, well, 3 gauges that were just bolted on, you know, just in the midst of the early 1970s. So I mean, I don't know whether that's an upgrade or not. Again, doors could do with replacing, really, but we don't have that sort of money at the moment. Yoink. My other issue is the bed. That's the other issue. What I was told when buying the truck was that you could get patch panels for the rear. So obviously I've got this here, which needs to be sorted out, but I was given a patch panel for it, and I found out that it's the wrong patch panel. It's not even a thing. So, you know, in order for me to rectify this, I'm going to have to replace the entire panel, you know, and these aren't cheap. These are 900 quid. You know, I can go and pick one up today, but it's 900 pounds. So the left hand side, you know, I could probably end up keeping it, but I mean the bottom is a little bit dinged, and I'll probably have to do a little bit of manipulation with the metal and stuff like that. So I just don't know what to do really with this. This is going to be the last thing that I have to deal with, but for the minute, just going to focus on the front of the truck, which is what I've been doing yesterday for a little bit. I managed to just sort of take out all the white and managed to sort of keep the colour, because eventually, for the time that the truck is going to be sitting here, this will probably rust over again, and that's fine. Where before it's got white primer underneath, so as the patina looks as good as it does, there's still white primer underneath, and that's a problem, because I want it to just be colour and rust, or colour and patina, but because there's white underneath, the white has to come off first in order for the rust to then come back through, because that's the look we're going for, obviously. But you know, looking at the side panel and the work that I did yesterday, you know, I kind of like it like that. Yes, it looks a little bit unfinished, but I mean, look at the truck as a whole, you know, look at the truck as a whole. You know, the work we did on the engine yesterday, all I did was, let's pop this open. Let's pop this open. So all I did yesterday was I took off the little quadrajet carb, the little 2-barrel quadrajet carb, and just had a little route around in the engine to sort of have a look what's going on and to sort of familiarize myself with what tasks I have to get done in order to make this engine just run. Because the issue we had yesterday was, as we were trying to get the truck up the drive, we reversed it up. As we were getting to sort of this lip here, the truck just died and just stopped running and we couldn't get it started. The problem was, because the truck was now on a camber, it was facing down, none of the fuel was going into the engine. It was literally sitting in the top part of the bowl and not turning the engine over. So I had to have somebody pump fuel into the carburetor whilst pushing the truck back, 2 of them pushing the truck back, so we could keep the engine idling so I could use it to use its own power to get it back. It was a real struggle yesterday, but it's on. So, you know, we're slightly less concerned about it sitting on the road now, which is good, until we finish off the paperwork. So, I mean, other than that, the carb came off absolutely fine. It almost fell off because obviously it's only held in by 2 bolts, one here and then one the other side. And then what I didn't want to do was I didn't want to just pull it all apart, because I want to replace the manifold, obviously. But by doing so, I'm going to be taking off stuff that I don't know where it goes back on. And a lot of this stuff is just plugged. So, I mean, that was just plugged with a spark plug yesterday. But, you know, if I start pulling that off and if I start, you know, removing hoses, I know where this hose goes, obviously. But if I start removing hoses, I don't know where they go back on. So until I get the new manifold, I'm not going to start pulling apart this engine any more than it is. So, I mean, if you look at stuff like this yesterday, this is obviously some sort of thermostat, but I mean, it's not even in the engine block, so that's probably why none of the dials work. So as soon as I get that manifold, I can get that in, but for now I'm sort of happy of leaving the engine just as it is, because we know it runs, and that's fine. It sounded lovely yesterday. It didn't sound, there was no knocking through the engine, there was no issues, there was no stuck lifters, there was nothing like that. The engine ran fine, albeit probably slightly rich, because it absolutely drank fuel like no one's business. And I mean drank fuel. And I mean, if that is true, and that's how much fuel it's drinking, that is expensive. You know, to run a 5.7 litre V8 is going to be an expensive thing in the United Kingdom right now, because, you know, that's where we are. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do a video about pros and cons of owning an American vehicle in the UK. It's probably going to be a lot of both. But yeah, I think that's going to be quite an interesting video. Once the truck is up and running, I think that's going to be quite an interesting video. Obviously the journey is going to be long, because, you know, with the state of the truck, you know, with all the dents that it has and all the imperfections that it has, you know, some of those have to be worked out, others don't. You know, others don't have to be worked out, because it's actually quite nice to own an old patina truck. But, you know, owning one, well, receiving one yesterday has really opened my eyes to actually how different vehicles are from the United Kingdom to America. Because when you look at the size of vehicles in the UK, I mean, there's not a lot around here, but when you look at vehicles in the UK, you know, they're not built like these vehicles. And you can tell as soon as it arrived yesterday, it was something completely, you know, completely different. And just the size of it, it makes you realize how larger things are in America. The infrastructure is built for vehicles like this, because in the UK they're just not, which is a bit of an anomaly. You know, one of the good things about owning this is that everybody that's walked past has said, wow, look at this, this is amazing, you don't see these in the UK, you know, and that's for good reason. You know, it is for good reason. You know, it wasn't cheap to get this truck in the UK. It's not cheap to run. It's not cheap for parts. You know, actually, I'm probably just going into a whole other video here, but yeah. You know, some bits in the UK are relatively cheap for this truck. Other bits are not, and they're quite expensive. So the cost of trying to get this vehicle back on the road is going to be expensive, you know. And, you know, when you own a house and, you know, you have a partner who is very forgiving, you know, and has said, yes, of course you can have a truck, sweetheart. We'll do the driveway so you can fit the truck on that. You know, that is very rare to find these days. And I'm very lucky for that. And that became very apparent yesterday when, you know, we were going to bed and we were looking out the window and just looking at the size of the truck going, we're going to have to modify our house in order for us to, you know, get this truck on the drive. And for somebody to say, yeah, it's okay, you'll be able to do it, don't worry. That is a very rare thing to find, you know, this day and age. So I'm very grateful for that. But today we're going to just continue on with the bodywork, and we're going to see if we can get this side at least looking half decent. Maybe just the cab itself, and then obviously we're not going to touch the engine until we've, you know, been able to buy the manifold and the carburetor, and, you know, eventually I'd like to change this to EFI eventually, but for right now it's just about getting it to idle and get the power steering to work, because that's one thing that would have helped us significantly trying to get this truck on the drive if it just turned on a dime, which it didn't, you know, and that was something that we found very difficult. So I'm going to crack on today. I might record some footage, but it's just going to be me sanding down the side of a truck, so I don't know how much of that you want to see or not. But I will show you the results, and I'll take some pictures as I go, and I will make sure that I keep my glasses charged up so you can see, you know, a POV view of what's going on, and I'll do a little walk around and tell you what's happened and stuff like that. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I'd like to be able to document this, but it is quite difficult doing that. It's quite difficult to set up a camera and move a camera and do all this and do all that. Yes, the glasses help. They're relatively simple to operate. You just tell the glasses to do something and they'll do it, you know. So it's simple in that respect. But when you start working on a truck, you really want to just dig into it and just have your mind clear. You don't really want to have to focus on other things. And I know that a lot of people do it, and it's becomes second nature once you start doing it. But for me, I really just like to focus on the thing I'm doing. And I sometimes think that people don't want to watch that. Maybe they do. You know, maybe I'm a bit of a stickler for stuff like that. But I don't know. We'll see if we record some footage today. If we do, great. If we don't, then, you know. But again, you know, if you guys really want to see it and, you know, you really want to follow the process, then look, I'm more than happy to do it. I'm more than happy. So yeah, let me know, and I'll catch up with you guys soon. Cheers, bye.